The blue Toyota Hiace van, registration GJI 4417, rolled into Loughgall village on the evening of Friday, May 8, 1987, following a stolen JCB digger toward a part-time police station in County Armagh. 5 men inside the van were armed and wearing bulletproof vests, balaclavas and boiler suits. In the digger's front bucket, wired to 2 40-second fuses, sat a large bomb packed inside an oil drum. The station operated limited hours. Its evening shift ran from 1700 to 1900. The unit arrived as the shift ended. History has called this an ambush ever since. Before that van reached the village, the same unit had already turned police stations into targets with guns and heavy bombs. One of them had walked free after a 15-minute trial. One was a sitting Sinn Féin councillor for Monaghan Urban District Council. One had escaped the Maze prison with 37 others. The word ambush sits on Loughgall like a verdict. The unit's own prior record reads more like a campaign that finally ran into men who knew it was coming. The term isn't exclusively Republican property. It appears in British military histories, in Wikipedia's article title, in academic papers, and in forces-aligned commentary. In standard military vocabulary, ambush describes any pre-planned interception, neutral enough in that limited sense. What isn't neutral is how the word functions in Republican commemoration, as a framing device that foregrounds British pre-planning while pushing the unit's bomb campaign into the margins or off the page entirely. When ambush is used to carry the argument that the British state was the aggressor and the men who died were victims of something done to them rather than actors in a documented escalating campaign, the word becomes an instrument, not a description. The unit's own prior record is what tests that framing. And the record begins not in May 1987, but nearly 2 years earlier. The Provisional IRA's East Tyrone Brigade by the mid-1980s operated primarily in eastern County Tyrone and the neighbouring parts of County Armagh. It had developed under a group of senior figures including Patrick Kelly, Jim Linner and Padraig McKerney, a specific strategic doctrine. Destroy isolated RUC and British Army bases systematically, physically prevent reconstruction, and thereby create what the strategy called liberated zones, areas where the security forces could no longer maintain a permanent presence. In 1985 alone, across Northern Ireland, there were dozens of attacks on security force bases. The East Tyrone Brigade's contribution to that total was among the most lethal. Patrick Joseph Kelly was born in Carrickfergus, County Antrim, on March 19, 1957. His uncle was the Irish Republican activist and elected official Liam Kelly. Patrick Kelly joined the IRA in his early 20s and was, by the early 1980s, one of the most experienced operatives in County Tyrone. In February 1982, he was arrested on IRA-related charges. He was held for approximately 20 months. In October 1983, his case came to trial. It lasted approximately 15 minutes. The charge collapsed for lack of evidence. Kelly walked out. By 1983, he had become the commanding officer of the East Tyrone Brigade. The trial hadn't held him. Neither had the arrest preceding it. Within 2 years, he was commanding the unit's first major station assault. Jim Linner was born April 13, 1956, on the Tully estate at the southern edge of Monaghan town, one of 12 children in a Republican family. He joined the IRA in the early 1970s. In December 1973, he was badly injured in a premature bomb explosion, arrested, and spent approximately 5 years in the Maze. He came out in 1979 and stood for election that same June. An Phoblacht recorded it at the time. Jim Linner has been a member of Monaghan UDC since June 1979. His election came a few months after his return home after spending 5 years as... The sentence trails off in the available text. But the council seat is confirmed, and was confirmed by the same Republican press that later mourned him. From June 1979 onward, Jim Linner held a Democratic mandate as a Sinn Féin councillor for Monaghan Urban District Council. He held it until his death. He was simultaneously, throughout that period, an active IRA operations leader. The RUC reportedly called him the executioner. The Guardian, in a 2002 piece drawing on a biography of Linner, described him as a notorious figure in modern republicanism with a reputation for ruthlessness. His constituents voted for him. His unit killed people. Both are true, and neither cancels the other. That dual identity isn't background colour. It's the central contradiction in the community defender mythology. The claim that these men were simply protecting their neighbourhoods from an occupying force. Liner's constituents were in Monaghan, in the Republic of Ireland, not in the area he was bombing. His democratic mandate and his bombing campaign were geographically and legally separate while being personally simultaneous. A sitting elected representative running lethal operations against police stations in a neighbouring jurisdiction isn't a community defender. He is, in the strict sense, a man holding two incompatible identities at once, and managing to hold them because the political climate of the Troubles made that double existence possible, even occasionally celebrated. Padraig McKierney's path to Loughgall ran through a more dramatic detour. Born December 18, 1954, near Moy in County Tyrone, McKierney had been tried at Belfast Crown Court on September 23, 1981, and sentenced to 14 years for possession of firearms and ammunition. His estimated release date, calculated from that sentence, was September 19, 1987. He didn't come close to serving it. On September 25, 1983, McKierney was among 38 IRA prisoners who escaped from H Block 7 of HM Prison Maze in County Antrim, the largest prison escape in British and Irish history. A Northern Ireland Office document dated September 26, 1983, lists him by name and date of birth under the heading Prisoners at Large. It's a state record, not a Republican commemoration. McKierney remained operationally active for nearly 4 full years after the escape. He was 32 years old when he died at Loughgall. His official release date, the date the law had calculated he should have served out, was 4 months away. PBS Frontline's documentary record characterised him at the time of his death as one of the most experienced and dangerous terrorists in the North. The NIO document, dated September 1983, confirms his sentence and his status. Between those two documents, nearly 4 years of continued IRA activity on the run. The other 5 members of the unit at Loughgall ranged from 19 to 29 years old. Declan Arthurs was 21, from Galbally, County Tyrone, and had experience operating diggers on his family's farm, a practical qualification that made him the obvious choice to drive the JCB. Seamus Donnelly was 19, the youngest of the 8. Michael Gormley, known as Tony, was 25. Eugene Kelly, no relation to Patrick, was also 25. Gerard O'Callaghan was 28 or 29, depending on the source. None of these men were anonymous. Each had a name, a county, and by 1987 an operational history extending back at least 2 years. The history begins at Ballygawley. Saturday, December 7, 1985. The assault was timed for 18:55, the shift change, when the handful of RUC officers manning the base were preparing to hand over. 2 IRA active service units from the East Tyrone Brigade converged on the RUC barracks in Ballygawley, County Tyrone. An armed assault unit carried AK-47 and Armalite AR-15 rifles. A bomb unit was responsible for planting and detonating the device. Both were under Patrick Kelly's command.
In the first burst of automatic fire, the 2 guards at the entrance were shot dead: Constable George Gilliland and Reserve Constable William Clements. A Republican account published afterward described a volunteer taking position close to the front gate, the 2 RUC men opening it, and the volunteer shooting them both dead at point-blank range, with other volunteers firing AK-47 and Armalite rifles into the barracks. 3 other RUC officers who were inside ran to the back of the station looking for cover. IRA members entered the building, took documents and weapons, planted a bomb inside, and withdrew. The bomb detonated and destroyed the entire barracks. 3 more officers were wounded. Among the items taken was Reserve Constable Clements' Ruger revolver. The Royal Engineers rebuilt the station in 1986. The Ballygawley method wasn't the JCB and bomb technique that would appear at the next station. The bomb here was carried inside on foot after the assault team had cleared the building. What Ballygawley established was the pattern: a manned police station assaulted with automatic weapons at close range, officers killed at the entrance, the building subsequently destroyed, and its reconstruction actively resisted. The brigade wasn't staging a protest, it was eliminating infrastructure. 9 months later, the delivery mechanism was refined. August 11th, 1986. The RUC base at the Birches stood near Portadown in County Armagh. Unlike Ballygawley, it was unmanned at the time of the attack. But the East Tyrone Brigade wasn't banking on an empty building. The station's perimeter fence had been reinforced specifically to protect against grenades and mortars. The IRA's innovation was to bypass that protection by delivering the bomb from inside a vehicle that could drive through the fence. The operation involved multiple teams across several roles: lookouts, an armed gun team, bomb makers, getaway drivers, and a separate unit that staged a diversionary bomb attack at Pomeroy RUC station simultaneously, designed to draw security force resources away from the real target. A JCB mechanical digger was hijacked, along with getaway vehicles and scout cars. A large bomb, approximately 200 pounds by most accounts, was loaded into the JCB's front bucket. At the Birches, the armed team first raked the station perimeter with automatic gunfire. The digger, bomb in bucket, drove toward the high-wire fence and crashed through it. A volunteer lit the fuse. The team retreated to a waiting van. The bomb exploded, destroying most of the base, the blast powerful enough to blow the roof off a pub across the road. Several civilians were slightly injured, including a partially disabled American tourist. According to journalist Mark Urban's reporting in Big Boys Rules, the armed members of the unit escaped by taking a boat across Lough Neagh, bypassing security force roadblocks. A British security forces officer told Urban what he made of the operation. The Birches RUC station was destroyed by the bomb, creating problems for the authorities about how to rebuild it. The Tyrone IRA was able to combine practical skills such as bomb making and the welding needed to make mortars with considerable resources. Its members went on operations carrying the latest assault rifles and often wore body armour similar to that used by the security forces, giving them protection against pistol or submachine gun fire.
By 1987, they had also succeeded in obtaining night sights, allowing them to aim weapons or observe their enemy in darkness. Body armour, night sights, the latest assault rifles. This wasn't an improvised unit working from a car boot. By 1986, the East Tyrone Brigade had the equipment and operational complexity of a small standing force with specialist logistics. Patrick Kelly commanded the Birches. Among those who participated, multiple sources confirm, were McKerney and Liner. Declan Arthurs is identified in the record as the probable JCB driver, his farm experience making him the natural choice. The team that crossed Lough Neagh in a boat to escape a roadblock was the same team that would drive a van into Loughgall 9 months later. In the 9 months between the Birches and Loughgall, the unit selected their third target, a small, part-time RUC station in the village of Loughgall, County Armagh. The plan was the same: steal a JCB, load a large bomb into the bucket, drive it through the fence, bring a van of armed men to cover the approach and engage anyone coming off duty. The station's operating hours, 9 to 11 and 7 to 19, made the target window narrow and predictable. British intelligence had other plans. Security forces received intelligence about the planned attack weeks before it happened, with the specific target reportedly confirmed at least 10 days in advance. The operation was designated Operation Judy. 24 soldiers, designated Soldiers A through X in subsequent legal proceedings, and 3 RUC officers were positioned at and around the station. Soldiers were deployed inside the building and in concealed positions around it. They had been in position since approximately 200 on the morning of May 8th. None of those soldiers has ever been publicly named in any document the British government has been willing to release. The ECHR judgment identifies them by letter only. That institutional secrecy is a documented fact about what the British state has chosen to disclose. Not a conspiracy, but a real and consequential limit on the public record. It creates space in the argument that evidence can't fill. Families on both sides of the shooting have had to navigate an investigation whose key participants remained permanently anonymous. What can be confirmed is that the British force knew in substantial operational detail what was coming: the blue van, a hijacked digger, a bomb. At around 14:30 on May 8th, masked men hijacked the Toyota Hiace from a snooker club worker on Mountjoy Road in Dungannon, telling him to wait several hours before reporting the theft. Between 1800 and 1845, a JCB was taken from the Mackle family farm at a Ginlig near Moy. A large bomb in an oil drum was loaded into the bucket. 4 vehicles, the digger, the Hiace, and 2 scout cars, converged on Loughgall from the northeast and arrived shortly after 1900. The digger made a slow pass of the station and turned around. The van did the same. The unit, per Peter Taylor's account, corroborated by the ECHR judgment, noticed something was off during those 2 slow passes. The station appeared unusually quiet. They debated whether to continue. They decided to proceed. Declan Arthurs drove the JCB toward the station at around 19:15. Tony Gormley and Gerard O'Callaghan were with him on the machine. Eugene Kelly drove the van. Patrick Kelly sat in the passenger seat. Liner, McKerney and Donnelly were in the rear. The digger crashed through the wire perimeter fence. The fuses were lit. The van stopped, and at least 3 of the team jumped out and opened fire on the building with automatic weapons. The SAS responded from inside the station and from the concealed positions outside. M16 and H&K G3 rifles, 2 L7A2 general-purpose machine guns. The bomb detonated. The digger was destroyed. The station was badly damaged. All 8 IRA members died in the firefight. The Historical Inquiries team, reviewing the evidence in 2011, concluded that the IRA unit had opened fire first. 600 spent British cartridge casings were recovered from the scene. The IRA had fired 78 rounds. The blue Toyota Hiace bore approximately 125 bullet holes. All 9 deaths that evening, 8 IRA members and 1 civilian, were caused by gunshot wounds, not the explosion. 3 IRA members were shot at close range while already down or dying. 2 were found unarmed when they died.
Declan Arthurs was found in a laneway with a cigarette lighter in his right hand. These details belong in the record, and they raise legitimate questions about the conduct of the operation at its margins. The ECHR agreed the investigation should have been rigorous enough to address those questions, and found it wasn't. But the questions don't begin at the moment the SAS opened fire. They begin with the bomb already burning in the JCB bucket, rolling toward the fence, with the IRA having fired first. The weapons recovered at the scene told a longer story. 3 H&K G3 rifles, 1 FN FAL rifle, 2 FN FNC rifles, a Franchi Spaz 12 shotgun, and a Ruger revolver. The RUC linked the cache to 7 murders and 12 attempted murders across Mid-Ulster. The Ruger was Reserve Constable William Clements's weapon, taken from his body at Ballygawley in December 1985. 17 months in the unit's possession, carried from one destroyed station to another. Then there is Anthony Hughes, and he can't be a footnote. He was 36 years old, a Catholic civilian from Caledon, County Tyrone, married with 3 children and no IRA connection of any kind. On the evening of May 8th, he was driving his white Citroën GS into Loughgall with his brother Oliver as a passenger. They had been repairing a lorry. Oliver was wearing blue coveralls, similar in the confusion of a firefight to those worn by the IRA assault team. Roughly 130 yards from the police station, soldiers opened fire on the car from behind. Anthony Hughes died from multiple gunshot wounds to the head. Oliver Hughes survived, seriously wounded, shot multiple times, and managed to get out of the car before being shot again while on the ground. 2 soldiers later administered first aid to him. Oliver subsequently disputed the soldiers' account of how the car had moved before the firing began. His brother was already dead. The village of Loughgall had not been warned. No attempt had been made to seal off the area before the operation, because doing so would have alerted the IRA. That decision had a cost. Anthony Hughes drove into a kill zone he had no means of knowing existed, in a car his brother's work clothes made visually ambiguous to a cut-off team scanning for threats under fire. Anne Foblacht's contemporaneous account acknowledged him. Anthony Hughes and his brother Oliver, who were returning home to Caledon, were fired on by British troops. And the East Tyrone Brigade's own statement, printed in the same May 14th issue, extended sympathy to his family. The gesture was genuine in its way, but Anne Foblacht's framing attributed his death entirely to British forces having established a deliberate killing zone, with no accounting for the fact that the IRA had driven a bomb to that village, creating the conditions under which a man driving home became a casualty. The British government's handling of his case took its own protracted detour. In 2012, the Ministry of Defence issued an apology that Anthony Hughes's family rejected. They said it attempted to apportion some blame to him. The family had separately received a substantial out-of-court settlement, confirmed at £100,000 for his widow Bridget by the ECHR's own record of the civil proceedings. In 2014, the British government confirmed Anthony Hughes had been wholly innocent of any wrongdoing. New inquests were ordered in 2015.
They remained pending as of 2023. A History Ireland academic article documented that some historical summaries of Loughgall omit Hughes entirely, confirming that his erasure from the record isn't imagined. It's documented. He stays on the ledger here, not as an argument against the SAS, not as a prop for martyrdom rhetoric, but as a man who drove his car into a village on a Friday evening and didn't come home. The bomb that the IRA brought to Loughgall created the environment in which he died. That moral weight belongs to the attackers as well as to whoever pulled the trigger that killed him.
The European Court of Human Rights case, Kelly and others v. United Kingdom, application number 30054/96, decided August 4, 2001, is frequently cited as a European-level condemnation of what happened at Loughgall. The ruling is more precise than that framing allows. The court found a procedural violation of Article 2, the right to life, specifically because of failings in the investigative procedures afterward. Over 8 years before an inquest opened, lack of transparency in the police investigation, SAS soldiers giving written statements rather than live testimony, and coroner's verdicts restricted to cause of death rather than the lawfulness of the force. The court awarded each applicant £10,000 in damages. What the court explicitly didn't do was find a substantive violation. It made no ruling that the killings were unlawful or that the force used was disproportionate. The applicants, who had not pursued domestic civil proceedings, were precluded from having that substantive question examined at all. The ECHR's own language throughout the judgment describes a security force operation, an attack on Loughgall station, and soldiers returned fire. The word ambush appears in the submissions of applicants' legal teams, not in the court's own characterization of events. The distinction matters because the procedural finding, the investigation was inadequate, is sometimes presented as if it were a finding that the shooting was unlawful. It wasn't. Those are different conclusions. Only the first is what the ECHR decided. And so to the word itself. 6 days after the shooting, An Phoblacht published its front-page banner, Loughgall Martyrs. The text described the men as ambushed and brutally slain, while simultaneously confirming that the IRA's intent had been to attack the station with a digger and a bomb. The East Tyrone Brigade's own statement, reprinted in the same issue, described volunteers who had shot their way out of the ambush and escaped witnessing other volunteers being shot on the ground after being captured. Within 48 hours of that issue appearing, the Irish Department of the Taoiseach had circulated an internal memorandum analysing An Phoblacht's framing, an Irish state document noting how Republican press was constructing the event as a shoot-to-kill ambush within 1 week of the deaths. That memo establishes one thing clearly. The framing war wasn't retrospective. It started immediately, and the Irish government was watching it in real time. Irish Tánaiste Brian Lenihan, in the Dáil on May 12, 1987, condemned what he called the IRA's futile act of violence. He used no ambush language. Northern Ireland Secretary Tom King, writing to his Irish counterpart, referenced weapons recovered as linked to multiple murders, and described the outcome as a security benefit. British official language in the immediate aftermath consistently used attack, operation, or shooting. The ECHR judgment follows that register. So does the HET's 2011 report. The shootings at Loughgall RUC station. Ambush, as a term spread across political lines,
British military commentary, Unionist sources, neutral historical accounts, and Wikipedia all use it. That cross-spectrum usage doesn't neutralise the political loading, it distributes it unevenly. In British military celebratory usage, ambush marks a tactical success. The security forces outmanoeuvred a threat. In Republican commemorative usage, ambush carries a different argument: that the British state was the initiating aggressor, that the men who died were primarily victims, that the proper question is what the SAS did rather than what the unit came to do. Annual commemorations in Capper, County Tyrone, at which Sinn Féin figures including Michelle O'Neill have spoken, consistently use ambush in that second sense. An academic study published in Tand Fonline examined what it called the malleability of memory and Irish Republican memory entrepreneurship, a case study of the Loughgall martyrs. The paper acknowledged the tension directly. The fact that 8 IRA members were killed in an SAS ambush on Friday, 8 May 1987 won't change even if memory politics means the interpretation and representation of this fact do. Its subject was how Republican commemoration has progressively reshaped the meaning of the event, not just what happened, but what kind of event it was. The Loughgall martyrs construction, first deployed by Anne Foblucht in May 1987, remains the dominant commemorative frame, repeated annually at graveside orations and murals across Tyrone and Armagh. The word ambush can describe a pre-planned interception. In that technical sense, it's accurate and uncontroversial. What Republican commemoration has done with the word is something else. It has made ambush carry the implication that the British state trapped passive men with legitimate grievances, that the proper moral frame for Loughgall is what the SAS did, not what the unit had spent 2 years doing. That argument requires the Ballygawley attack to disappear. It requires Constable Clements Ruger to disappear. It requires the 7 murders and 12 attempted murders linked to the weapons recovered at the scene to disappear. It requires the oil drum in the JCB bucket to become incidental rather than central. The campaign record does not permit that disappearance. Ballygawley, December 7, 1985. 2 police officers killed, 3 wounded, station destroyed, a revolver taken from a dead man's holster. The Birches, August 11, 1986. Station destroyed by JCB-delivered bomb through the fence. Method proven at scale. Loughgall, May 8, 1987. Same vehicle type, same delivery method, same strategic intent. Third iteration of the same assault pattern, against the same category of target, until the third time, when a force on the other side had been told what was coming and treated the unit as exactly what it was. The IRA suffered its largest single loss of life in any one incident during the Troubles that evening. In the weeks that followed, thousands attended the funerals, the biggest Republican funerals in Northern Ireland since the hunger strikers of 1981. The East Tyrone Brigade continued operating for nearly another decade before the IRA's final ceasefire. The blue Toyota Hiace, 125 bullet holes in the bodywork per the ECHR, was taken into evidence. An Irish news report from 2018 placed it at an RUC facility in the years afterward, physical residue of a third attempt that went the same way the method was designed to go, just not for the side that had designed it. Clements Ruger, recovered at Loughgall, closed a chain of custody running from a gate in Ballygawley to a laneway in Armagh. 17 months, 3 attacks, 1 revolver. The record is its own closing argument. Patrick Kelly was 30 years old. The 15-minute trial had returned him to the campaign. The campaign brought him to Loughgall. Jim Liner was 31, a sitting councillor in the Republic, and a bomb commander in the north. Padraig McKerney was 32, a prisoner the law was supposed to hold until September 1987. The unit's youngest member was 19. Anthony Hughes was 36 and driving home. Post-event scrutiny of British forces has produced legitimate findings. The investigative failings confirmed by the ECHR, the questions about 3 men shot at close range while already down, the death of a civilian in a kill zone the Army created and didn't seal. Those accountability questions are real, and the fact that they involve a unit that arrived with a bomb does not dissolve them. But the scrutiny of British forces can't float free of the IRA's murderous intent. Can't be presented as if the soldiers materialised in Loughgall without cause, while the unit's 2-year campaign of station destruction quietly disappears from the frame. Both things are in the record. Both belong to the same evening. The language fight ends with the timeline, not the slogan. If you want more stories told straight from the record, subscribe.